All right, this is going to be a client getting video. If you want to build a coaching business, you got to know how to get clients. In this video, I'm going to break down 5 things that you've got to do to turn prospects into paying clients. How do you turn your prospects into clients? That's a big conversation. Obviously, if you want to be a coach, part of being a coach is having a coaching business and being a successful coaching business. So one of the most common questions is, how do I get clients? And how do you convert somebody who's not a client into a client is really where so much of the focus is placed. Now, if you don't know this about me already, you're going to find out that I teach foundations, because foundations are much different than what so many people are looking for and what a lot of people are teaching. Foundation is what you want if you're interested in sustainability. Way too many people are focused on fast, focused on shortcuts, focused on now. How can I get success now? And a lot of people, it's just like the microwave mentality that so many of us have. But so many people are not focused on, how can I build a foundation that will last when I have success? And a lot of people, I think, don't do that because we feel like foundation equals slow. If I focus on the foundations, if I set a foundation on the ground, then I can't start building right away. I do this all the time with golf. Whenever I go to play golf, I want to just start playing right away. And so I find myself not wanting to stretch, not wanting to hit some practice balls. I just want to go right into the course. I want to just start doing right now without paying any attention to, or in my mind, wasting any time on the things that are going to make the performance, in this case, the golf or whatever it is that you want to do. I want to skip over the stuff that's actually going to make that more enjoyable or more successful, because it's not fun. It's not why I came here, right? I didn't pay money to practice. I paid money to play. And way too many people have that same kind of mentality in business. Foundations aren't fun. And because foundation isn't fun, a lot of us don't want to spend time on it. We want to do the things that are fun. We want to do the things that we want to do. But that's extremely dangerous. So because a lot of us don't want to plant our success inside of foundation, we plant our success inside of trends. We plant our success inside of strategy, inside of tactics, inside of shortcuts and secrets. One of the reasons that the word secret is, I believe, in the top 5 marketing words, meaning it's one of the top 5 words that gets people to take action, is because we are oriented to believe that if we could find the secret that we don't currently have, then we could go where we're not currently at. We could create what we're not currently creating if we just had the secret, if we just had the secret sauce. And so we focus on the things that look like secrets and sound like secrets, and the things that are novel, the new stuff. But novel only lasts a short period of time, relatively speaking. Some things that are novel might last a few days, or might last a few weeks, or a few years, or maybe a few decades in big, big conversations. But novelty never lasts, just by the inherent definition of it. So when we're focused on secrets and new and something that I don't know yet, it causes us to be in the mentality of susceptibility to trends. We're more susceptible to believe that the trends are what we should put our focus on, because it matches what we're looking for. We're looking for that fast success. And what we don't understand a lot of times is that foundation can be fast, but it takes a certain kind of conviction to actually understand that long-term foundation is going to be more sustainable. And then if we do what's going to be sustainable, we can do that fast. We can build foundationally in a fast way, but we can't build fast in a foundational way. So we get caught in the currency of the trends. It's like these trends are coming downstream, and we get caught inside of them. So we focus on the platforms, and we want to know how to do Facebook Lives or Facebook groups, or should I be using Clubhouse, or how do I market on Instagram? And all of those things are important. They're an important puzzle piece, but they're not the puzzle. The foundation is the puzzle. And because foundation and fundamentals aren't sexy, they don't really grab our attention. They just work, right? They work and they last and they give us stability, but they don't satisfy our desire for sexy. But I'll tell you what's sexy is long-term sustainable success. That's sexy, but it's just not perceived as sexy when we're trying to get the quick success. So what we end up falling prey to is temporary success rather than sustainable success. And if you build your business on temporary foundation, and you can explode in business by teaching shortcuts or by learning and implementing shortcuts, it's actually worse if that shortcut, if the platform, if the trend changes. And by definitions, trends don't last. If it's a trend, it's not going to last. When it changes, if your success is attached to it and built upon it, then your success will go with it. And I want to be really clear. There's nothing wrong with wanting quick success. We all want quick success. But my invitation to you and my suggestion to you is that you search for quick, sustainable success and then do that quickly. So if there's a sustainable way to build a business, then just add your speed to the sustainability, rather than hope that if you become successful with some kind of a trend, that trend will never change. And so because of this mentality, most of us are sacrificing our long-term success because we're chasing the short-term success. We're sacrificing the long-term foundation because we're chasing the short-term fun. And that's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of coaches have. So I get it. It doesn't sound sexy. It doesn't sound fun. It doesn't fit into all of the elements that we have that create ego desire. What do I mean by that? Ego desire. The ego wants things to be simple. The ego wants things to be fast. The ego wants external success and validation and tangible rewards. The ego wants to stay comfortable. The ego doesn't actually want to change its formation. It doesn't want to change its self-concept. In fact, what our ego generally does is protect our current self-concept. So how can we grow beyond who we believe ourselves to be while simultaneously not changing who we believe ourselves to be? That is the ego's conflict. And that's why when we're driven by our ego, we're actually more committed to preservation. We're trying to preserve who we think we are. We're trying to preserve our comfort zone. We're trying to preserve our circumstances because we're comfortable here, because we're familiar here. The ego is not committed to possibility. It's not committed to expansion. It's committed to preservation. And that's why a lot of these sizzle techniques work in attracting the ego, because it makes it sound like you don't actually have to do anything that's going to change foundation. I can give you the hacks. I can give you the short term. I can give you the shortcut. And since so many of us are programmed to find our self-esteem in our success, if we can find a shortcut to success, then we believe we'll feel better about ourselves. But I'm sure many of you have experienced this. Short-term success, regardless of the level or intensity of that success, doesn't give us self-esteem. It doesn't actually make us feel good. It doesn't give us any fulfillment at a deeper level. That's just because we're playing at this shallow level. So there's a lot to dive into with this concept and a lot of different applications that we will continue to touch on. But I just wanted to set the stage here, the context, because everything I teach is really going to be based on foundation. And it's based on 15 plus years of my journey. Some of you don't really know my journey, so I'll just take a moment here and let you know, I've been coaching for 15 plus years. I got into this to just help myself figure me out. And through that process, I don't know how many coaches I've hired. I don't know how many seminars I've gone to. I actually did figure it out about 2 years ago. Roughly, I've been in a transformational seminar room for more than a year, meaning like over 365 days all combined, I've been in seminar rooms. So I've lived inside of this transformational ocean for a long, long time. And so what I teach comes from looking back at what works. It doesn't come from my philosophy of what I think is going to work. I'm not trying to convince people about what might work according to my theories. I'm just telling you, I'm reporting to you what I've seen that works or doesn't work based on my experience and based on a lot of clients' experiences and based on just being in this conversation for so long. So that's why I believe what I believe. That's why I'm convicted in the things that I teach, because it's based on what I know to be true based on experience, not trends. And I've never ridden a trendy wave and had it provide anything more than just a little bit of short-term success. So we have to understand how our brain works inside of this whole conversation for us to be able to manage the conversation with ourselves as well as with our clients. And this ego conversation is really critical, because if you follow what your ego wants you to do and you avoid what your ego doesn't want you to do, you just cannot build a successful coaching business, in my experience. Nor can you really evolve in your human journey, because the ego is committed to preservation. That's just what I've learned. What I want to dive into a little bit deeper in this conversation is a through line concept, meaning that this is going to keep coming up over and over and over and over again, is you go first. You go first. If you're a leader, the inherent essence of leadership is you go first. What I've seen in coaching is that so many of us are being either programmed or trained or sold on the idea that we don't need to go first, or we're just trying to be the first leader to not go first. And that's usually because we are succumbing to the desires and the fears of our ego. That's why this foundational conversation is really critical for us to understand how we operate inside of it. What I want to hit in this video is this idea of turning a prospect into a client fits this mantra, the truth that we have to go first. So what do I mean by that? There's a couple different angles to this. Number one, just think about what connotation does prospect have? Prospect is a noun, and it's also a verb. Like you can be prospecting for gold, which means you take one of the little bowls that got the holes in them and the filters and almost like a colander or whatever they're actually called, and you scoop up a bunch of stuff and you sift out the things that aren't gold, and hopefully what you'll be left with is gold. So you're prospecting for the gold. You're prospecting for the stuff that has value to you, and you're trying to sift out all the other things. Or a prospect in this conversation a lot of times is the person that's not a client yet, but they might become a client. So there's this energy of, it's basically adversarial energy, meaning that we're adversaries in the conversation when you are my prospect and I'm trying to get you over here to my side of the table, whatever that looks like, or in my coaching program, or to become a client. I want you to do something, which means I have agenda. And you have something that I want, usually money. So you've got the thing that I'm chasing. I'm prospecting for the thing that you want. And because of that, a lot of times there's this energetic conflict, and there's this, sometimes like I might withhold the good stuff because you got to pay for the good stuff. If you're just a prospect now, then what I give to you, how I serve you is different than how I'll serve you over here. And you see this a lot of times in language when people are embedding things like, if you join my coaching program, then I'm going to teach you X, Y, and Z. Now, is there truth in that? Of course there's truth in that. Of course there's truth that we're not going to take everything that we teach. I mean, I've got certification programs. I'm not going to take everything that I teach in a certification program and put it out there for free for all kinds of reasons. We'll get into some of that beyond the scope of this particular video. So there's truth in that. But can we operate with an energy that doesn't create the separation of that? That's a huge mistake that I think a lot of people make. So just think of it this way. How would you interact with people if every person was already your client? And I'm talking about energetically. There are things that we don't give to our clients. There are exercises that we wouldn't necessarily do with somebody who's not yet a client. But energetically, if you are my client, I've got a different relationship to you. But if you're my prospect, I've got something I'm trying to get from you. And even if we think that doesn't matter because we're going to show up and serve as much as we can, a lot of times our energetic projection is unconscious to us. We don't recognize that because we actually do have something that we're trying to get from the prospect. So just think about it. How would you act differently? And I'm going to give you a few things to actually do before this video ends here in a few minutes. I'm going to give you a few things that you can actually do so that you can apply this. But conceptually, I just want you to think, how would you behave differently? How would you show up differently, whether it's tangible or intangible, internal or external, if everyone was a client to you? And I'm putting that in quotes because I want it to be an essence. If everyone had the essence of a client to you, how would you show up differently, energetically? Now, this does not mean that everyone literally is your client. Like, this doesn't mean that your family members are your clients and that your spouse is your client and that your friends are your clients. So I'm not saying look at the entire world as though they are your clients, because that's a whole nother reason, or not reason, but that's a whole nother conversation of what we generally don't want to do, right? But everyone you engage with in whatever marketing you do, whatever messaging you do, when you're on the phone with people, if you engage with people that match some version of your target market, if every person you engaged with felt like a client to you, what would you do differently? And would you be able to give them a different perspective? So you go first in this context is a connotation shift. And the connotation of client for pretty much everybody that I've talked to about this is different than the connotation of customer. And it's different than prospect. And it's different than target. And it's different than a market, right? When you start marketing to markets, you're not even marketing to people and you're not even marketing to individuals. So this is a connotation shift so that everybody that comes into your energetic grasp feels the importance of being a client rather than feeling like a prospect. And that's what so many people tell us, especially in the coaching world, is that no matter where they go, they feel like people are trying to take money from them. They feel like people are trying to just get from them whatever it is. And you know, mostly it's money in the coaching context. And so there's that energy of feeling like somebody's taking something from me. And if I feel like somebody's taking something from me, naturally, I'm going to withhold. I'm going to defend. I'm going to protect against the thing that I feel like is being targeted, right? Ultimately, what people want is they want to feel served. They want to feel like you give a damn. They want to feel like you're paying attention. And it's easier to pay attention to a client than it is to a prospect, or the way that we pay attention. If we're paying attention to a prospect, we're waiting for us to jump in. We're trying to figure out when's the right time to tell them about our program. We're trying to assess, like, do they have the money based on what they're saying to pay the price that I want them to pay? We're not fully present in the service of that conversation if we're seeing them as bait, if we're seeing them as meat. I mean, essentially, like we're a predator in that situation. That seems like kind of a barbaric analogy, but it's true. If there's something we're going after, then we're a predator, and we are, which makes them prey. At a deeper unconscious level, this is the energy that a lot of people feel and a lot of people show up with, even though they don't really fully understand. Treat everybody as your client also doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do the same thing with everybody, no matter where they are in their journey and no matter where they are in your journey. Meaning, like somebody that comes in and they just gave you an email doesn't mean that you're going to treat that person with all the same content, you know, from an information standpoint, an exercise and experience standpoint, as somebody who's been here on your journey or on your ecosystem, you know, or in your ecosystem and experiencing you for like 3 months, right? What you give to that person that's 3 months in, or the person that's 10 years into their journey, isn't necessarily going to be the exact same thing as you give somebody that's earlier in either one of those journeys, right? But this is all about your energy. So the big takeaway from this video is, if you want to turn prospects into clients, then turn prospects into clients first, energetically. And what you'll find is once that division is dissolved energetically, more prospects will become clients physically and literally and financially. So you go first. So as we end here, I want to give you a few things of what that actually looks like. What does that look like from an application standpoint, so you can start implementing this? Number one, it looks like when you're in conversations with somebody who might want to hire you as a coach or might want to buy one of your products or services, I want you to be more committed to the transformation in this engagement rather than the transaction. The transaction is, what do I need to do to get their money? What do I need to do to get their conversion? What do I need to do to get? That's the transaction mentality. Then I want you to think about, what do I need to do to provide a transformation in them? What do I need to do to give them something that they didn't have before this call, or help them release something that they brought into the call, if that's kind of coaching that you want to do. The second thing is, when people are doing consultations with you, they call you. One of the things that we just have a policy in our company, the people that do the consultations, they call in. Now, if you're meeting on Zoom, you can provide a Zoom link or whatever the platform is, and you can be there, but they got to come to you. Energetically, we don't want to chase them. And the reason that we don't want to chase them is because if we're chasing them, we're back into that like predatory energy. If we're chasing them, then they're the target and they have something that we want so much that we're going to chase them. So allowing people to essentially opt into the conversation, even though they already put on a calendar and it's been agreed upon, for them to opt into the conversation puts them in a different place rather than us chasing them down. I've just found that that really changes the energy. We do it in our coaching calls as well. The clients call in us. We don't call the clients. And it just, I think it's actually energetically, it's honoring who they are, that they're taking the seat at the table. We're not taking the table to where their seat is. The third thing is, when you're providing some kind of recommendation or some sort of, sales pitch, I'm going to put that in quotes because that's got a negative energy for most people. But when you're offering something to somebody, you've got to advocate for their goals, not your goals. When somebody's on the line with you, if they're a potential sale to bump your percentage, then you're going to show up differently. You've got to show up with advocacy for them. And that requires you to listen to them and be really present with them as much as you possibly can. And we want to keep them at choice. So you're going to give them a recommendation based on what you know, based on everything that you guys just talked about, but you're making a recommendation and advocacy, not a forced choice based on your agenda. Advocacy over agenda is really critical. The fourth thing here is, we want to do everything we possibly can to make sure the answers come out of them rather than out of us. That's coaching. It's about getting the answers out of them. And so you'll actually be a better salesperson when you coach on your sales calls. And we'll dive into that at some point in time and give you more specifics around that, because that's kind of counter-intellectual for a lot of people. But we want to do more coaching and inviting them into a prolonged experience of what we've already given them, rather than sell them the expectations of what they'll get. We want to provide experiences and offer the continuation of their experiences, rather than sell the expectations and hope that we can fulfill them. And the fifth and final thing here is you've got to be more committed to the person than the process. Who is it that you're wanting to help? Who is it that you're wanting to serve? And your person as well. What is it that you want to do on this planet? What kind of impact do you want to make? The more that you're driven by your rooted desire as a person to help other people, the more you'll be able to overpower a lot of the ego obstacles of the things that just don't feel good. Like, I want to get clients, but I don't want to show up on camera because I don't like the way I look. Well, that's your ego trying to protect yourself. Every time you're worried about protecting yourself, your ego is overpowering your desire to serve. So in closing here, the best way to do all of this being build a great coaching business and have people hire you as a coach and buy products and stuff, the best way to do all of this is to be a damn good coach. Focus on increasing your value. Don't increase your sales skills, increase your value. So you need less sales skills for people to say yes to you, because they love what they experience in your presence and they want more of it. But very few people who are struggling as coaches actually believe in the product that they're selling, because the product that they're selling is themselves. So if you are the product and you doubt yourself, essentially you're doubting the product. It's incredibly difficult to build a business when you don't believe in the product, because every time your ego can get involved and protect you from exposing the product that you don't believe in, it will. And that's why so many people struggle. And then they try to overcompensate for their lack of belief in themselves with marketing and information and tactics and sales and trends. And all that fast track stuff is overcompensation for the lack of fundamental belief in themselves. All right, if you like this video, check out that video right there. I'm going to give you 4 coaching techniques to create more impact for your clients. If you want to provide impact for your client, then we got to get them to see that there's no personal control or personal choice in the way that we use that word in this universal